You could get to an upper B2 or even lower C1 in English or Spanish in just a year if you know how. Hello, people. My name is Alberto. An English consultant, and also I study the microbiota through machine learning. Anyways, let's get going. Like, it's really possible to get to a good English level or Spanish level in less than a year or just a year if you do the right things right. What do I mean by that? I'm just trying to grab my phone the right way. So what I mean is that you don't need to go to long courses. You don't need to buy an uncountable amount of books, of courses, to get to a level in which you can speak and write and read and understand advanced English. I've seen it, I've lived it myself with French and German, so I know it's possible, and I've seen it in my students, right? I live it also through English, but with English I had the same problem that most people have, going to courses throughout my life and not being able to use the language. So what changed, right? What was my different approach, and why it also worked with my Spanish students trying to learn English? It's basically that I teach them to integrate English in their lives so that they are constantly practicing, and that makes a lot of difference. But I what I tend to use is translating lyrics, writing their life, right? Having a trip, what did they do yesterday, um, writing an opinion essay on a movie they love. But to do that effectively, like they have to start doing it with the tools they come into class with, and I combine that with teaching them the language in a digestible and efficient manner. What do I use? I use the parts of speech and the most used parts or rules of the language. If you want, I have a guide here on the description. I have the full recorded course or a short guide, which is cheaper, that you can buy to understand everything. You'll find a guide for learning English and a guide for learning Spanish. The short guides. The full course is only for Spanish speakers learning English. So that's, I mean, if you learn the language in a structured way, then you can break the language down into achievable goals. Then it's easier. And if you also integrate the language into your life, then you get proficient so quickly. I mean, there are only 8 parts of speech, right? And you can look them up on the internet. But if you then break down the language into 8 parts, then you can start reviewing them, right? And then you complete different rounds of the parts of speech, uh, and then your studies. She's getting crazy here. Tocha. Okay, she's fighting against his mental enemies, I guess. So then you have a structure. Then you can reach or study the 8 parts of speech once, then twice, then thrice, then 5 times. What I've noticed with my students is that if they go 5 rounds to the parts of speech, it's enough for them to start using the language properly, because there you find the order of the sentence, you find what are adverbs, adjectives, their differences, and then it makes the language. It allows you to use the language more efficiently, so your practice becomes even better, easier, and there is some point in which you can watch full series in English. I mean, you don't have to do everything in English. It's recommended because then you create like a habit. But it doesn't have to be everything, right? If you want to watch Shrek in Spanish because it's a masterpiece of dubbing, then do it, right? ¿Dónde están las rubias? But maybe you want to explore different things, new topics, and then you can do it in English, because sometimes there is not. I mean, with the AI, then you have more translations and more available information. How do you know it's true, right? How do you know it's well translated? How do you understand the differences in languages, and that's the beauty of a different language, that it is a different way of thinking. That is why sometimes they have different sentence structures. Like Japanese, they use the verb at the end, right? In Spanish and in English, we use the verb in the middle and the subject first. So, and I think Japanese is object, subject, verbs, right? So, it's quite a different way of structuring your mind, and it helps you. Like, even just studying a language 2 or 3 months is worth it, because then you change your way of seeing the world, and that's just so valuable. But yeah, anyways, I think if you follow those approaches, like practicing and studying this way, then you can um, get to a upper B2, intermediate B2 even, or even lower C1 in less than a year. And it's really funny because most natives don't manage themselves or their lives in a C1 level, and most people in a population are stuck in a B2 because they never understand that their language is divided into parts of speech. They don't know them, their rules. And that's your advantage as a foreigner learning a foreign language. That if you go into the language with structure, then you don't have to study years. You studied years your own language. As a kid, you went through elementary and through high school, and even at the end of high school, most people cannot formulate coherent sentences in a written text, right? So, yeah, don't think it's different everywhere else. So yeah, thank you.